Hello friends, how are you today? Well, today we've got the story of the goddesses in the lunar eclipse chart. I want to tell you the two main stories. As you're listening to the stories, you can check in and see where do the influences that are occurring now, where do they resonate for you in your life? Does the resolution or the progression of these stories, is it meaningful to you, and does it provide ideas or tools for assistance on your own journey? So this is a different way of doing astrology. It's through story, but it's a fun way of doing it. So there's two main stories going on right now on the eclipse chart related to the goddesses. I made a story about the major planets, and I published that video yesterday. So now we're going to talk about the goddess story because it's very dramatic, and I noticed it was the first thing I noticed on the chart. It primarily involves Lilith, and it involves the human home. Now, the second story involves Hygiea. Hygiea is the goddess of health and wellness. Look at the geometries. Do you see this triangle here? Okay, so Hygiea is in this triangle here. She's at 5.5 degrees retrograde in Scorpio. So look who's on the other end. Medea at 640. She's closer than Lilith here. Leviathan is at 606. So this is a primary feature in the chart. It appears to be in the background. And in fact, Leviathan is in Pisces, rules the traditional house of the shadow. Hygiea is in Scorpio, which keeps secrets like no one else and is key to death and rebirth. Medea is in Cancer, which is the sign of the home. And this is a place where we don't like to see Medea. This represents, in my view, a point of influence and potential power for forces of darkness related to health. So Hygiea is in retrograde, right? So we're reviewing the health situation related to the last 2 years and related to where people are at in the present moment. There's going to be secrets that come up that we're going to be able to look at. Medea is going to attempt in this review to work her own magic for her own aims. At the same time, the Leviathan is in a trine as well, with Medea giving her some power, because the Leviathan is a primordial beast. It's of the oceans, and whether it's a serpent or a dragon or a huge reptile from ancient times that is malevolent towards human beings. And there it is enshrined with Hygiea, while Medea, who's essentially a psychopath, is in the trine as well. So this is a sensitive point in time for Hygiea and health in general in the human home. Hygiea, she's not comfortable here in this triangle is my feeling. It's a very much shadowy aspect. Leviathan is a primordial energy of chaos, and it's bound to use shadow forces. It's its nature to affect its goals in the human home, with Medea helping it affecting human health. Now, this is real, okay, in our world, but there's also an illusion here that we need to be aware of. And that gets us into the second story of the goddesses. And Lilith sees this, interestingly, and she is about to alert everyone. And she's adamant about protecting our homes. Lilith is not well understood. You really have to search for the articles that discuss more than her shadow side. The second part of the story I've addressed in almost all my astrology videos, going back to my first videos in November and December with those eclipses of 2021. It was clear to me at that time that the story of Sedna is key to our entry as human beings into the new age. See all these squares here with Sedna? The squares go between the head of the dragon up to Sedna, and those squares are with the home, the sacred home, Vesta and the priestess in the temple who guards the sacred flame. and Saturn. In my video about the Schumann wave, I talked about how important this energy is and the focus of divinity on righting things within the human home. And so what happens with the eclipse? Look what happens. Lilith enters the sign of Cancer, the sign of home, the sign of our emotions, the sign of security in the home. That's what we want. We want a stable, loving, secure home. And now Lilith enters. Now, here's a secret that you probably don't know about Lilith. She's very much presented in a negative aspect that's hard to relate to. And I believe that this is intentional because Lilith is some of the most potent strength that a woman has. This is Ceres here with the hook. Ceres is at 0 degrees of the sign of Cancer. So Ceres, the mother, the divine mother. And if you're looking at Christianity, for example, I would say that this would be like Mary, the mother of Jesus, right? In general, when we look at the concept of the divine mother at this very high level of divinity, it's my view that she has all the aspects of femininity, but then certain of the goddesses reflects aspects of her personality. So Lilith reflects the independence, the fierceness, the fighting for oneself and one's own authority and the ability to enact this. And Lilith cares about the children. She is a queen, in my view. She's not very emotional. She's not very comfortable, in my view, in the sign of Cancer because Cancer's very emotional. And Lilith is much more, in my view, she's got much more of a Mars type energy. Her emotions tend to rage. And that's where her strength is. When she sees something out of place, that she's going to stand up and do something about it very actively and can be very aggressive. Now, here's something I want to share with you that I learned from my friend Alex when we were chatting. I was showing her this story and we were chatting about the figures. Well, the Greek version of Lilith can be seen as Hecate. Now, the goddess Hecate, you can look her up, but she's the goddess of protection of the home. But it's very interesting because she's been, the flavor of her has been also turned to the negative. And I believe that that's to disempower us as women from accessing those parts of ourselves or to be afraid of those parts of ourselves because we want to be, good, holy, embody the divine, embody the Most High, and having a personal understanding myself of Lilith through very many visions. It's my view that in the ancient times, Hecate was invoked to protect the home against non-physical negative energies. In other words, Hecate was a master of the fourth dimension, a master of the astral realms. And so these non-physical negative influences that can have an effect on humanity, right, from other dimensional states, from light spectrums that we can't see, Hecate understood how to protect human beings from this. And for that, she was called a witch and diminished in the pantheon. The fact of the matter is that protection from the non-physical realm, understanding how to have dominion over one's own body and the non-physical energy that we emit in terms of our soul energy, our body energy, our thoughts, our emotions, our intentions. This is primary. Understanding how to live with dominion over oneself, embodying fully the soul that we are. This is where you really get the traction, when this is aligned with divine will through yourself, when you are consciously intending to embody the soul that you are. Dominion means command over. So what happens? Ceres is now fully embodying her place as the mother of the home from the perspective of the divine mother. Lilith is her aspect, and Lilith goes ahead into the sign of Cancer, and as she's going in, she's about 3 degrees away from Medea, and she goes, oh my goodness, because see, Lilith is a master of the 4th dimensional realm. That's where Medea operates. That's where the Leviathan operates. She has the sight to look ahead and see, what is Medea working on? Now, here's the story of Medea in just a nutshell. Medea takes self-focus and self-interest to an extreme. No matter what she's working on, it's all about her. At the extreme, this is Medea, and she's willing to do whatever she feels is necessary. That includes taking out who she sees as in the way of her plans. She's extremely dangerous. And Lilith is smart enough to keep at a distance here. And she looks at Medea heading into the sign of Cancer, and she says, no, I do not consent. I will not stand for this. Why? Because Lilith was present when the current chaos around health in this country was formed. Let me show you that. This is the chart for November 2016 as it relates to the current eclipse. Hygiea is at Scorpio. Lilith has recently conjuncted. As we get into this very important time when there was a surprise election of a surprising individual, that's when the plans related to Hygiea were put in place. So Lilith had just passed over Hygiea, okay, but she didn't necessarily know what was going on. The sun was here at Hygiea, illuminating, and here's Mercury. But this is the sign of Scorpio, which is extremely secretive. So whether or not Mercury is going to say anything about what is transpiring here with health in November of 2020, it's more likely that Mercury will wait until conditions are more favorable and until secrets are revealed, because many, many secrets have been revealed in the 6 years since this time. But what's interesting is that you see Uranus here at 15 degrees, and you see Hygiea here at 15 and a little bit. It's very fascinating because Hygiea was exactly opposing the current placement of Uranus in Taurus. Does this mean that shocking secrets will be revealed related to health and related to plans that were put in place going back years ago? I would say that that is a strong possibility, because you also had the sun here bringing the light of transparency and Mercury waiting until the time is right. You had Lilith observing the whole thing. She didn't really know what was going on at that point. Lilith gets out of her funk, okay, because this was 2 years ago, and let's see what she does. If we go back to July 14th of 2021, we can see that Lilith has moved through Aries, she moved through Taurus, and she passed by Uranus. Now, when you pass Uranus, you're going to have shocking events occur, and it's going to shift your point of view. It's going to knock you out of your funk, and it's going to get you back focused on, wait a sec, what am I really doing here? What's my true purpose? What's my mission from the standpoint of the highest divine part of you? She meets Sedna at the same degree, and she hears Sedna's story. She hears about the trauma that Sedna has been through, and then she proceeds. By September of 2021, Lilith conjuncts the head of the dragon, and now she's really pissed. She's pissed off because of what Sedna is going through. And Sedna's in retrograde now, and she's reviewing her story, and she's very upset and sad about how she's been treated. And she represents humanity. She represents the mother whose children are mistreated. So Lilith is starting to really get some rage on here. Ceres is ahead of her. Ceres passed Sedna, checked in with her, but the Divine Mother oversees all of creation. So she sees that this is going on with Sedna, but she proceeds along because it hasn't been brought to her attention yet that we as human beings are ready to address this story. On October 26th of 2021, Lilith conjunct Ceres, she reports to the mother what is going on. She's in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Finally, Mercury, through Lilith, is able to tell what are the family secrets, what has been happening in the human family to the children. And Lilith is rageful. She's been filled with the energy of the dragon, and she tells Ceres, Mom, look, we have to address this now. See how Ceres is retrograde? She's focused on what Lilith is telling her. She's moving towards Lilith in this conjunction. That brings us back to the present day, where Lilith has reported the situation to Ceres, but as she moves ahead and see Medea working with the Leviathan to once again affect the health of the human family, and she's in the sign of the human home, Lilith says, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And since she is also Hecate, who understands the non-physical realm, and because most of Medea and the chaos forces magic comes from those realms, she makes a decision to guard the home. And what happens from now, May 2022, going all the way through the winter of 2023, is all of the goddesses start to visit Lilith in the home. And as the goddesses visit Lilith in the home, she instructs them over what has been happening and asks each of them in their potency, in their unique expression, to address the situation. She gets them all on the same page and asks them to contribute their energies. This trine here with Leviathan, Medea, and Hygiea is moderated by 3 features. First, I talked about this in my other video on the eclipse about Saturn. See, Saturn at 24 is square, the head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon here. You can view this dragon as a feature of the Leviathan, the ancient primordial influence. It's a dragon, it's a reptile, it's ancient, and it comes from our deep past. It's even got a part of our brain, the reptilian brain, it's called, in the back of the head, above where the neck connects to the head. But as I explained in that video, Saturn's force is compressing the ability of these ancient chaos forces. It's constraining them, thank goodness. This is a benefit to humanity. It gives us the ability to rise up and say, I'm going to choose something different. In addition, the other moderating force is Juno. Juno is in the house of Pisces watching the Leviathan. But you'll see that she stays in the sign of Pisces through the winter watching the Leviathan. She's the clan mother. In some ways, she has a similar energy with Lilith. Juno is the ultimate clan mother. But since Lilith is the dark queen, she's the queen of the shadow forces, of the shadow side, right, of our femininity. So there's also an aspect of caring about the children there, caring about how civilization itself will unfold. And civilization is made up of many, many human homes and the activities that go on in those homes. So Juno stays in the shadow side of life as Lilith does her work here, watching. It's not her normal, comfortable place to be, but it's necessary that she be there at this moment. The other thing that's happening here that moderates the energies is that Eris is watching over Sedna. Now she's at a distance because Eris is at 24 degrees and Sedna is at 28 degrees. When Eris is potent, she can do things like start the War of Troy, okay, in ancient times. So having Eris at a distance is okay. But if she sees that things are not going in alignment with what she feels is the proper way for divinity to unfold, will she take action? Likely so. Likely so. The other moderating force here is the masculine energy, the men. What are the men doing? They are intending that their women wake up. Mars is conjunct Neptune within a degree. Mars says, I will power our hopes and dreams. We saw in my last video about the Schumann wave astrology that Mars's greatest dreams for the future was to be with Venus in a happy home, in a home that was properly structured, that could support the proper raising of children. And so Mars focuses on this dream, on pouring his heart and soul into making this dream happen. And this is what the men do when they're in proper alignment with women. We build the dream together. I want to show you in a progression. So this is predicting the energies. I'm just reading what the energies are and how it appears that they will unfold. How this comes into play in the human world, I don't know, okay? And I don't know the timing. Let me give you an example. Pluto passed over my midheaven something like 10 years ago. When it passed over my midheaven, I was not doing this. I was dreaming of the future. I was dreaming that I wanted to create mastery for myself. 10 years later, now I'm doing this and it's just amazing. But it took that amount of time to unfold my personal story. And I'm still going, right? Because I'm now at the beginning of rolling this out. On and on we see the miracle of divinity unfold. When we get to May 27th of this month, Lilith will conjunct Ceres in Cancer. And when Lilith does this, she says to the Divine Mother, Mom, look at what is happening in the human home. We've got to do something about this. Mom, you've got to do something about Medea. She does this as Sedna is conjunct with the asteroid Victory. Mercury is still held back, still in retrograde. So we're not going to be talking about this in the near term in a huge, big way. That's going to unfold later. Now, it's interesting because Lilith conjunct Ceres at Cancer 4 degrees, Cancer 5. That's the unfolding of the energy. Humans learn lessons through destructive experience. It's about the individual will versus the collective will. And isn't that in part what Lilith is talking to Ceres about? Lilith is talking to Ceres and saying, Mom, look what Medea is doing again. Okay, you've got to stop her. And look at how human beings have been affected, right? This collective will, dominated by chaotic forces, has affected each of us individually, and it has been a destructive experience for many, many people, and many people have lost their lives. All the action on May 27th is in Aries and Taurus. We are taking action and we are evaluating what of those actions is going to really address what we want to achieve for the new for us. Let's move to the end of July. What you see is that Venus comes and visits Lilith in the home. Lilith has slowed down. Everybody's passing her now because she's in the home and she's guarding the home from non-physical forces of chaos. And Venus conjuncts her and she says, Venus, sister, goddess of war, assist me. Look at what is happening in the human home. And they get very emotional about it. Okay, the moon passes over them when they're conjunct and they're very upset. And they know that they've asked the Divine Mother to address Medea's actions. But Lilith says, you're the goddess of love. You're the goddess of war. Bring love back into the human home. How will we have safety and care for the children without the mothers present, without the fathers able to properly care for their children in the home, without the writing, making whole again the structure of the human family itself? And this is the theme that we saw with the Schumann wave here when Vesta was exactly conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. We have to write the situation within the human home to move forward properly into the new age, to have a grounding of good health, of security, and of family structure for our children. And Venus listens. And Venus listens and says, I'll see what I can do about it. She's about to go into the sign of Leo, where she will address the human collective from an individual perspective. This is kind of exciting up here. What you see is, here's Varuna, the god of justice, the god of the sea. He's the one who binds sinners. And we know that Medea was recently engaged in questionable business with the Leviathan who lives in the sea. Yet Varuna has dominion over the sea. Why is that? Because Varuna represents the divine masculine, and Varuna represents that aspect of the creator. And who defeats the Leviathan? God does. God wins. It tells us in the Bible every time that God wins over the Leviathan. And that is who is able to defeat the Leviathan. It is the divinity in us and through us, not from a human world perspective. Can we defeat the Leviathan? It's when we make the choice to align with the divinity that we are. And this is what Mars is dreaming of. Mars conjuncts Uranus and the head of the dragon in Taurus. And Mars is like, I'm tired of this. Mars representing the divine masculine. And Mars says, we've got to make a change here because I've got to create a place for my woman, a place for my children that is safe. We're done. We are done with what Medea has planned. No longer shall she be able to affect her chaotic plans on the children, representing Sedna. Now remember, we are at the beginning of the Aquarian age. This is most likely not going to unfold in a few weeks. But can dramatic changes initiate now? Yes, I would say so. Remember what the goddesses care about, because as astrologers interpret these aspects going forward, because right now we're looking at July 27th here, remember that what the women care about matter, and that the big thing that's going on the goddess side of the astrology wheel is everyone is visiting Lilith as she protects the home in the sign of Cancer. Hygiea breaks out of the triangle. She's now 1.5 degrees separating from this point in the lunar eclipse energy. She breaks free, and she's beyond the Leviathan now at 6 degrees, and she's beyond the place that Medea was as well.